All right, to talk about that, I'm joined now by Anas El Gomati, founder and general director of the Sadeq Institute, a think tank in Tripoli that seeks to provide analysis and understanding of issues in Libya. It's good to have you on the show. Is this the breakthrough that we have been waiting for now for years?
Fortunately, Brent, I don't think it is. I mean, I spoke to you earlier this year in January when the conference in Berlin took place, and it made similar promises. And I think that the milestone or the measure of elections is not really the contentious issue here. The contentious issue has always been that if violence flares back up, how do we stop it? Now, we've had similar calls in the last few years. In 2017, in Paris, there was an agreement to hold elections. In Palermo in 2018, there was an agreement to hold elections. And in 2019 in Abu Dhabi, there was an agreement to hold elections. Those elections were prevented by conflict. And in fact, the very body that we rely on to stop those conflicts, the UN Security Council, allowed for 14 months of conflict to take place in Libya without having the means to stop either the local actors that were pulling it, namely Khalifa Haftar and his Libyan Arab armed forces, or the forces that were supporting him, international actors from the UAE, Egypt, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and France. None of those actors were sanctioned or condemned or criticized for this. And I think there's a danger here in overly focusing on elections without realizing that elections aren't that controversial. The real problem here has always been who holds power in Libya, who is going to be the next president, which of the armed groups and the factions on either side is going to be designated the legitimate army. And I think those things are giving us a better indicator of the prospects for violence in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying here is these elections, they'll take place, but first the peace has to hold until then. And you sound rather pessimistic based on what we've seen in the past.
Absolutely, and I think that's the major issue here is the real dilemma comes down to the UN Security Council, the European Union, both really key diplomatic bodies that can use sanctions as a deterrent. And they've failed to use those sanctions, and they've given, in fact, the actors that were involved in very illegitimately trying to overthrow the UN-backed government, they've given them a lease of life. The unification talks, unfortunately, offer, without conditions, it seems, the legitimacy of the internationally backed government to be now designated and reassigned to actors that had tried to overthrow the government or to the armed group that tried to overthrow the government. And I think that we could be back at this next phase in a very short time. It could either be 18 months and delayed elections. It wouldn't be the first time. Libya's gone 6 years without election. And it could also be a case of a new war like we saw last April. But the key difference this time will be that one group that was illegitimate last year when it tried to overthrow the government has just acquired international and legitimacy out of a UN process. Real dangerous times.
Yeah, and one thing that's not changed, there are lots of moving targets, moving variables in this equation, that's for sure. Anas El Gomati from the Sadeq Institute joining us tonight. We appreciate your insights. Thank you.